You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
And now, a word from our sponsor, the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. As a listener of this podcast, you're probably at least marginally interested in data, especially about all the different ways that it shapes our world. So I want to recommend the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. This is a forward-thinking show brought to you by the folks at Calibra. They're the leaders in data intelligence. You're going to hear firsthand from all sorts of people, industry titans, innovators, executives from some of the largest companies as they dive into the hottest topics in data. You're going to get insights into everything from popular things such as AI governance and data sharing down to more nuanced questions like how do we ensure data readability at a global scale? So while data may be shaping our world, Data Citizens Dialogues is shaping the conversation. I want to encourage you to follow Data Citizens Dialogues on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out. We thank Data Citizens Dialogues for sponsoring our show. Canada orders ByteDance to shut down local operations. Cisco releases urgent patches for multiple vulnerabilities. SteelFox malware delivers a crypto miner and info stealer. North Korean campaigns pursue fake jobs and remote workers. A suspected cyber intrusion disrupts Washington's state court systems. Over 200,000 customers of SelectBlinds have their credit card information stolen. Cyber experts encourage Congress to pursue bipartisan readiness studies despite DoD pushback. On our Industry Voices segment, we welcome guest Jeremy Huval, Chief Innovation Officer at HITRUST, discussing the AI explosion and the need to consider the risks before implementation. And curiosity killed the cat lover's computer. It's Thursday, November 7th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here once again today. It is great to have you with us, as always. Canada has ordered ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, to close its Canadian subsidiary, TikTok Technology Canada, which will result in shutting down offices in Toronto and Vancouver, announced on November 6th by François-Philippe Champagne, Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. The decision follows a national security review under the Investment Canada Act, aimed at mitigating risks from foreign investments. The Canadian government cited concerns over potential security threats tied to ByteDance's connections with the Chinese government. Despite the subsidiary's closure, the TikTok app remains accessible in Canada, with the government encouraging users to adopt strong cybersecurity practices. ByteDance criticized the decision, saying it would impact hundreds of Canadian jobs, and announced plans to challenge the order in court. This move aligns with similar actions by the US and EU, which have restricted TikTok over national security concerns. Cisco released patches for multiple vulnerabilities in its enterprise products, including a critical flaw in its unified industrial wireless software, scoring a perfect 10 out of 10 on the CVSS scale. This vulnerability allows unauthenticated attackers to inject commands with root access via the web-based management interface on affected devices. Users are advised to update to the latest version to mitigate the risk. Additionally, Cisco fixed a high-severity bug in the Nexus dashboard fabric controller, which could be exploited for SQL injection, and another high-severity flaw in enterprise chat and email that could lead to denial of service. Cisco addressed nearly 24 other medium-severity issues. affirming that none of the vulnerabilities have been exploited in the wild. Cisco has also identified a vulnerability in its desktop phone, IP phone, and video phone series that could allow remote attackers to access sensitive data like call records if the web access feature is enabled. This flaw, due to improper handling of sensitive information in the web UI, can be exploited by browsing the device's IP address. Although web access is off by default, Cisco has issued patches to secure affected devices and advises users to apply updates promptly. The malware bundle SteelFox has been impersonating legitimate software like Foxit PDF Editor and AutoCAD to steal user information since 2023. Distributed through torrents, forums, and blogs, SteelFox delivers both a cryptocurrency miner and an information stealing component. It installs via fake cracks of popular software, requesting administrator privileges during installation to later exploit them for malicious purposes. SteelFox uses a vulnerable driver to escalate its privileges, making its processes hard to terminate. The malware collects extensive user data, including browser history, cookies, location, and system details, packaging it in a JSON file and sending it to a command and control server. Kaspersky reports victims worldwide and advises users to download software only from official sources and use robust security measures to avoid similar threats. Hackers are increasingly exploiting vulnerabilities among remote workers, often using tactics like vishing to impersonate IT staff and steal sensitive information. Recently, Zscaler uncovered 2 North Korean campaigns, Contagious Interview and Wage Mole, aimed at bypassing financial sanctions by securing remote jobs under false identities. The Contagious Interview campaign lures developers with fake job postings, infecting them with JavaScript-based malware Beavertail and Python-based Invisible Ferret, which exfiltrates data via encrypted HTTP protocols. This malware targets developers on Windows, Linux, and macOS, affecting victims primarily in India, Pakistan, Kenya, and Nigeria. Stolen identities from these attacks fuel the Wage Mole campaign, allowing operatives to land remote jobs in Western firms. These operatives use AI-generated documents, portfolios, and even voiceover tools to pass interviews, impersonating experienced developers. Zscaler advises companies to verify employment history, use virtual environments for suspicious files, and authenticate applicant identities to combat these tactics. A suspected cyber intrusion has disrupted Washington state court systems this week, affecting multiple counties, including King, Pierce, and Thurston. The Washington State Administrative Office of the Courts detected unauthorized activity on its network, leading to outages in public access to court services. While Pierce County reports minimal impact, some courts have suspended hearings and experienced issues with electronic filing and fine payment systems. The Administrative Office of the Courts is working to secure systems and restore service, but has not confirmed whether ransomware is involved. This incident follows a wave of cyber attacks on various U.S. court systems and other Washington state entities. Hackers stole credit card and personal data from over 200,000 customers of home decor retailer SelectBlinds by embedding malware on the company's website, allowing them to scrape data entered on the checkout page. Discovered in late September, the malware had been active since January, capturing usernames, passwords, credit card details, names, addresses, and emails. SelectBlinds has locked user accounts, requiring password changes, and removed the malware. The company advised customers to update reused passwords on other sites. This attack is part of a broader trend where hackers use e-skimmers to inject malicious code into online checkout pages to siphon credit card data for sale on dark web markets. In a time of political division, bipartisan efforts to strengthen U.S. cybersecurity are at risk. Recently, the Defense Department opposed a proposal for an independent study on America's cyber force readiness, even though this bipartisan initiative has backing across both congressional chambers. In an opinion piece for CyberScoop, cybersecurity experts Colin Airn, Chief Cyber Officer of the State of New York, Erica Lonergan, Assistant Professor at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, and Mark Montgomery, retired Rear Admiral and Senior Director of the Center on Cyber and Technology Innovation at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, emphasize that traditional physical barriers like oceans don't shield the U.S. in cyberspace, where adversaries routinely infiltrate critical infrastructure, deploy malware, and gather sensitive information from government and private networks. The proposed legislation seeks to evaluate whether the U.S. has the cyber personnel, strategy, and resources necessary to counter growing digital threats. It also explores creating a dedicated cyber force, similar to the Space Force, focused on recruiting and training cyber specialists. Given that much cyber expertise lies within the private sector, an independent study would explore how a cyber force could enhance collaboration between military and civilian sectors, federal and local governments, and public-private partnerships. Such a force could also support a cyber-specific National Guard and Reserve, offering flexibility and knowledge sharing for high-stakes cyber defense. The authors contend that the Defense Department's resistance may stem from concerns about uncovering readiness deficiencies, as recruitment and training for cyber roles remain fragmented across military branches. This bureaucratic divide harms overall readiness, yet institutional interests often resist substantial change. Congress, they argue, should not bow to Defense Department pressure, but instead move forward with the study to assess America's force posture in cyberspace. With threats escalating globally, including Chinese incursions into U.S. infrastructure, Iranian attacks on water systems, and cyber warfare in Ukraine, the authors stress that the U.S. cannot afford to delay. An independent, transparent assessment would offer unbiased insights into the readiness and potential reforms needed to secure the nation against digital threats. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Jeremy Huval, Chief Innovation Officer at HITRUST. We're discussing the AI explosion and the need to consider the risks before implementation. Stay with us. Hey everybody, Dave here. I want to talk about our sponsor, LegalZoom. You know, I started my first business back in the early 90s, and what I would have done to have been able to have the services of an organization like LegalZoom back then. Just getting all of those business ducks in a row, all of that technical stuff, the legal stuff, the registrations of the business, the taxes, all of those things that you need to go through when you're starting a business, the hard stuff, the stuff that sucks up your time when you just want to get that business launched and out there. Well, LegalZoom has everything you need to launch, run, and protect your business all in one place. And they save you from wasting hours making sense of all that legal stuff. Launch, run, and protect your business to make it official today at LegalZoom.com. You can use promo code CYBER10 to get 10% off any LegalZoom business information product, excluding subscriptions and renewals. That expires at the end of this year. Get everything you need from setup to success at LegalZoom.com and use promo code CYBER10. That's LegalZoom.com and promo code CYBER10. LegalZoom provides access to independent attorneys and self-service tools. LegalZoom is not a law firm and does not provide legal advice except where authorized through its subsidiary law firm, LZ Legal Services, LLC. When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing Trust Center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. Jeremy Huval is Chief Innovation Officer at HITRUST. In today's sponsored Industry Voices segment, we discuss the recent explosion in AI and the need to consider the risks before implementation.
My personal perspective is that, from a security perspective, the threat actors as well as the organizations adopting AI are both in a similar spot. I'd say both are working to understand AI's capabilities, and both are sort of in this kicking the tires phase of AI. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of prototyping. Less so are there AI-enabled systems being used for security campaigns. But I think that's going to change really, really quickly here. Nothing about AI has been slow ever since sort of the explosive adoption of ChatGPT a few years ago. We've seen nothing but really accelerated activity and adoption and research and development and innovation on the AI space. But my own read is that we're leaving the kicking the tires experimentation phase, and we're about to rapidly find ourselves surrounded by AI tools.
You know, one of the things that we talk about over the past few years, it seems like the cybersecurity professionals have learned that when they communicate with their board, when they communicate with the people who are the powers that be at their company, that it's most effective for them to do that in terms of risk. And when I think about AI, I think about how much of a black box it is and how complex it is and how that really makes that message of risk, translating that message of risk, a lot more complicated. Do you think that's an accurate way to describe it?
It's a good read. Certainly, the lack of explainability of generative AI systems contributes to the challenge of kind of understanding and managing those risks. It's bigger than that, though. There's certainly the complexity, and there's certainly the kind of low explainability of its outputs and decisions. I've been really, really impressed with sort of the organizations like NIST and ISO and OWASP and others who have stepped back and said, look, we've got a chance to think holistically about the risks that AI adoption is going to bring. And what they've come up with is this concept of trustworthy and responsible AI that is a very big umbrella, more than what we typically focus on from a cybersecurity perspective, and certainly larger than the remit of any single department in an organization. So under this kind of responsible and trustworthy AI umbrella, you start to talk about risks around sustainability and the environmental impact of AI system creation and training all these great big AI models. You start to talk about the impact of safety and humans' well-being being put at risk potentially if AI systems aren't governed and designed correctly. You think about privacy, you think about reliability and fairness and accountability. All these other things under this big umbrella of trustworthy and responsible AI makes you quickly appreciate that this is a bigger problem than just one single department like cybersecurity within an organization. Certainly, cybersecurity is an important part of trustworthy and responsible AI, but is just that. It's a part.
I know one of the things that you and your colleagues at HITRUST are advocating for is this notion of prescriptive controls when it comes to AI security. Can you unpack that for us? What exactly do we mean by that?
Yeah, good question, Dave. If you think about what right looks like in a controls framework or any kind of set of guidelines or standards, you can sort of put them into two buckets. One is objective based, or sort of this high level goals driven. So, like, hey, as a goal, go manage cybersecurity risk. And as a goal, make sure you've got a good sort of secure software development process building up to the delivery of that AI system. Those are high level, they're important, and it's really critical to state that as objectives, certainly these things need to be there. But how do you do that? Like, what are the specific actions necessary to have a robust, secure software development methodology within your organization, building up to the release of that AI system? Do I have to just train my developers? Do I have to have a really locked down CI/CD pipeline? What other like prescriptive actions are necessary behind that one goal? And that's really what we mean when we say a prescriptive framework is warranted for AI security, in the sense that there's a lot of really good thinking and direction at a high level about, if you want to secure AI, you should have these goals in mind. But what we found is an absence of really prescriptive guidance on how to achieve those. And certainly that'll change over time. But we've done a lot of work to sort of fill that gap.
Where do we find ourselves in terms of organizations communicating about these threats? I mean, there's certainly no shortage of talk about AI. It is the hot thing right now. But behind the scenes, are folks collaborating?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I read somewhere that there was something like 400 different AI working groups of some different flavor just in the US alone in 2024. And so there's a lot of collaboration going on in the public sector and the private sector, internationally as well. There's the problem with AI, in my opinion, is that there's not a shortage of guidance. You're sort of drowning in guidance. The UK government, specifically the Alan Turing Institute, maintains a website called AIstandardshub.org. And by my last count, it had over 300 AI specific standards. And not all of them are security, and some of them are really industry specific. But it's reflective of this current state of there's just so much guidance, you're almost drowning in it. And for a regular organization who's just maybe staying interested in standing up, maybe at first sort of a generative AI chatbot, but is also exploring other Gen AI driven use cases, it's overwhelming. Really navigating the AI standards landscape isn't their core focus. And so there's value in having a controls framework or an approach to securing AI or managing risk or understanding governance. There's value in sort of saying, what are the core things I got to do to secure this AI system, or to update my risk management capability to include AI? What are the core governance aspects I need to control those controls around AI?
In terms of recommendations for folks who are trying to get a better handle on this, as you say, it can be overwhelming. What are your words of wisdom for people to try to break this down into manageable bits?
I would say don't try to start from scratch if you can help it. It's a mistake to try to say, look, I'm going to grab the latest NIST this or ISO that or guideline from, some industry think tank that I really like and design my entire program around that. I think that's a mistake, because the organization that you're in very likely has processes for risk management and processes for governance, and has a security team with a great number of security processes and expectations that should be built on and augmented to address the specificities of AI, instead of a single group within the organization trying to stand up a complete new program for AI in a silo based on a single, piece of guidance. That's tip one. And I think tip two is embrace continual learning, because with AI, like I mentioned, there's just so much change. In the past year or two, we saw the explosion of just generative AI, period. In 2025, my read is we're going to see a lot more agentic AI, which are these really capable, almost autonomous AI-driven agents that can do things on your behalf. And so I've got a whole team of AI agents that can do this or that for me. We're going to see a lot more of that. We might see the explosion of small language models, maybe rival the growth of large language models. But I bring up those examples as just a couple of things that are going to be different in the AI space next year. And without someone in the company that can say, look, I'm committed to trying to be a learner in this space, you'll find yourself always reactive and trying to fall behind. The other guidance I think I would certainly recommend is to look to your existing control framework or your existing IT assurance mechanisms, whether it's a certification or some assessment or some internal audit capability that exists in the company, and see what can be offered by way of AI within that framework or within those practices. HITRUST, like many different controls frameworks right now, is looking inward to say, are we doing enough to provide assurances and insight and ID gaps associated with AI? And if you're looking at your control framework particularly and you're not finding it, it's probably better to move your whole company to a control framework that's got the AI specificities as opposed to standing up yet another control framework just for AI.
It strikes me that there's this tension, you could describe it as, between this idea that we have to get on board with AI because the market demands it and there's certainly benefits. But at the same time, you can understand wanting to sort of sit back and wait and see how things are going to flesh out. Who are going to be the winners? What kind of regulations are we going to see? It sounds to me like you're really advocating that folks need to be proactive here.
I think so, because as soon as AI is used within a company, and I say usage really carefully here, as soon as AI is used within a company, there's new risks that the company needs to consider. And guess what? That's happening now, whether those charged with governance of the company have really made it a focus to tackle or not, it's happening. Now, those risks are certainly amplified, and there's new risks when a company does make that big strategic decision to either prototype AI and consider rolling it out into production, or really start to even take the deep dive and start to train their own predictive AI models and stuff like that. It's focused organization. It is sort of a make or break moment. And it's true, there's always winners and losers, but I think tomorrow's winners are going to be shaped by the organizations who work to embrace this now.
That's Jeremy Huval from HITRUST. And now, a word from our sponsor, NordPass. NordPass is an advanced password manager from the team behind NordVPN, designed to help keep your business safe from data leaks and cyber threats. It gives your IT professionals control over who has access to your company's data and makes it easy for everyone else on your team to use strong passwords. Right now, you can go to www.nordpass.com/cyberwire for 35% off the NordPass Business Yearly Plan. Don't miss out on that. And finally, in a curious case of cyber crooks targeting feline fans, Sophos reports that the bootloader malware gang, typically laser-focused on high-value targets like banks, has turned its gaze toward an unusual group: Australian fans of Bengal cats. Yes, you heard that right. This infamous malware, known for sneaking into systems via SEO-poisoned search results, has been spotted targeting folks simply curious about the legality of owning Bengal cats down under. The story goes like this. Unsuspecting cat enthusiasts, innocently Googling, "Are Bengal cats legal in Australia?" are met with booby-trapped search results. Sophos investigators found that clicking the top link led these curious minds straight to a zip file harboring bootloader's payload. From there, the malware initiates its devious plan, dropping a huge JavaScript file and establishing persistence with PowerShell commands. The endgame? Bringing out the heavy hitters like Cobalt Strike and ransomware. As bizarre as it seems, this cat-loving cyber caper reminds us just how far cyber criminals will go, and how important it is to think twice before downloading anything from that helpful forum post. It may be the perfect crime. I mean, talk about catfishing. We're talking forbidden content, and that's just scratching the surface. Let's not get hysterical. I could do this all day, folks. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K CyberWire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president, Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business.